Hello there, Lunar Squadron, and welcome back to the channel. Today is a very exciting day as we have 3 brand new sequences of gameplay for Star Wars Outlaws, totaling roughly 30 minutes of gameplay. This is incredibly exciting, and today we are going to sit down, walk through it all, break all the interesting details that we found. But before we get into that, couple brief messages. First, huge shout out and thank you to Ubisoft for inviting us to this showcase last week to show off all of this new gameplay, and then for providing us this gameplay to break down for all of you. Huge shout out, Ubisoft. Really appreciate you for doing that. And also, if you are new to the channel, we would love to have you as always, and the way to do that is just go down below this video, hit that little subscribe button, the bell notification right on next to it. It'll notify you every single time that Andreas and I upload. And if you would like to take this conversation beyond the comments on YouTube, make sure to go over to Twitter and follow us at Lunar Squadron and jump into our Discord server. Invite to join that is down below in the description. Now, with all that out of the way, Andreas, you ready to walk through 30 minutes of brand new Star Wars Outlaws gameplay?
Oh yeah, let's do this, guys. In this first sequence of gameplay, which is roughly 10 minutes long, we find ourselves with Kay and Nyx as they are perusing around an Imperial fuel station, and then we'll end up ending this journey around Mirogana City. But as we begin this gameplay, one thing that I want to point out just right off the bat here is just how much the HUD has changed since the gameplay reveal trailer. And if you'll recall back to the gameplay reveal trailer, it was a bit more minimalist. It had just the right bumper control for Nyx and then a left bumper control for the blaster. But here there appears to be a much more fleshed out HUD. Along the bottom hand side, you can see there are various different D-pad controls also being used here, and then different controls added for the blaster. And then, as we'll see later on, Nyx's controls are kind of hidden in like a shell format where you'll hold the left bumper down and then there are more options for you. And speaking of that system, just up ahead we see one of the abilities for Nyx here, which is pressing that up button on the D-pad, and what that's going to do is it triggers something that looks almost like eagle vision from Assassin's Creed, and you're able to see enemies through walls and points of interest through walls, kind of like in Assassin's Creed, using Nyx's senses. So that's one Nyx ability, and then immediately following we can see Nyx's other abilities here, where it raises this action menu for Nyx, and you'll see it has various options for you to select. You can select between attacking, stealing, detonating. You can even use Nyx to distract or to set a trap. One thing I want to note here is that certain of these options are going to trip alarms. Certain of these options are more stealthy approaches, and here we go with the distract option, and that is going to be a more stealthy approach, which ultimately distracts the stormtrooper so that you can sneak up behind, and you'll see when an enemy is distracted, it is just a one-shot hit using the X button to take down that enemy discreetly. And one detail that I like is that Kay kind of eases the stormtrooper down toward the floor so as to not make any noise and not raise that alarm, which you can see on the top right is of paramount importance for this gameplay sequence.
So then you will see, as we kind of progress through the hallways here, you will see that you can actually select your stun option on your blaster, which we knew that, and you will be able to use the right bumper to shoot your blaster and stun an enemy, and that actually will maintain your stealth capabilities. But stun shots do appear to be on a cooldown, so you will have to use this sparingly. And then you will see, as this continues, that you will actually be able to take out 2 enemies at once, one being taken out with Nyx and one being taken out, of course, by you, and this will again maintain your stealth abilities. And then as this continues, you will actually see our first look at the computer terminal puzzles, which, I gotta be honest with you, Andreas, these are a little confusing.
Yeah, they are, and honestly, just by reading the descriptions from the bottom, it doesn't make it any more clear to me. It says slicing subroutines and deleting last glyphs. This looks like something that we're gonna have to play around with before we get the hang of, but whoever's controlling here seems to know their way around the terminal. And one thing that I'm noticing is whenever you complete a terminal like this, you will earn 50 credits. We see 2 terminals throughout this gameplay, and both times Kay earns 50 credits, and you can see that it totals your total credits to around 5,050. And one thing that I'm really excited to see is what that amount of currency will actually get you in this economy. And then, of course, here, once you complete the terminal, you are given some options. And one of these options is activating evacuation protocol, and the other is approving cargo shipment. And I'm assuming that this will have a difference in the gameplay here. You're going to have a fork in the road, and this is going to impact replayability as well, because there seem to be 2 ways to go about this mission at this point.
Here we will just cut to the next sequence within this gameplay showcase, and we will actually again see our first look at another minigame, this time being that lockpick minigame. Of course, we know that the little thing in her hair can be used as a data spike for lockpicking, and the mechanic is pretty similar to what we see in some Bethesda style games, so pretty familiar mechanic going on here. And then we will see that we will actually get some blaster combat. We have broken stealth, and we also see that you can actually slide into cover, which is a cool little gameplay mechanic. I actually really love this feature. It's going to add some depth and just make the combat feel a little more dynamic as we progress through these levels.
And coming up next, you can also see how you're able to use Nyx in combat situations. Here, just by pressing the left bumper, Nyx sprints over to this canister and sets it up for an explosion. And I love the aggressiveness of the explosion, sends the stormtrooper flying. And we've talked about the practical effect look of explosions and blaster bolts and impacts in this game, how it looks like they've really drawn inspiration from the original trilogy, and this explosion really plays right into that theme that we have been talking about. And then as Kay ends up hiding behind this cargo container, you can see it's marked with the Imperial logo. A Bacta vial is sitting atop the cargo here, and by using the right stick, you can go ahead and pick up that Bacta vial, and you can see at the bottom by the health bar, which is also a new thing in the HUD that we hadn't seen before, and it looks like it pops up during combat scenarios. You can see that Kay is holding 1 Bacta vial already, and she can go ahead and pick up that second Bacta vial, and then of course you're able to use the Bacta vial by pressing down on the D-pad, very similar to how we've seen health stims used with BD1 in Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order.
And then we will see how we will actually be able to change firing modes on your blaster. You will use Y, and this also may be able to change using different modules. And then also one thing I really enjoy from this sequence, we also get to see what the, quote, reload minigame will look like. And Andreas, it's very reminiscent of the exact same style of Battlefront 2.
And then one other thing that you can see, just based on how the HUD is flashing in the bottom right-hand corner, it looks like there is this ultimate ability that you can use by pressing down your left and right stick, and we've seen this in the gameplay reveal trailer when there's almost like that Deadeye ability or that slow-mo ability from Red Dead Redemption, and Kay is able to use that to effectively take out all of the remaining stormtroopers in this sequence.
Yeah, it's very cool. We also see her pick up an E11 here. Again, we will be able to pick up weapons around the world and use them, and it sounds fantastic. It sounds just like the E11. The sound design team is killing it when it comes to this game. And then, of course, we will get into the Trailblazer as we are trying to make our great escape from this fuel station, and you will actually see a brand new HUD for the ship, as well as some wanted HUD Arabesh, and it says imminent threats to public safety or Imperial security. So just some very cool details. And then, of course, if you can hear the audio of this, it is actually having the Empire over the radio announce that TIE interceptors are being sent after you. So just some very cool stuff.
And we also are able to see at this point that this fuel station is called Fuel Station Vasavi, location discovered. And one thing that I'm really excited about here is I'm wondering how you were able to approach this fuel station to begin with. We see you exiting the fuel station, and it looks like a pretty seamless exit here. And I'm wondering if you're able to just fly up to fuel stations such as this and then enter the fuel station seamlessly in gameplay, or if there's some sort of a cutscene there. I'm assuming maybe there's going to be a cutscene, but it remains to be seen.
And then we get this really cool sequence of dogfighting gameplay for this. We're getting all kinds of stuff in this little sequence of gameplay, and we will actually, when you lock on to an aircraft, it tells you the faction, the name of the ship, and whether that ship is hostile or not.
Yeah, so here it's showing you that this TIE fighter is a Galactic Empire ship, that it's a TIE/LN starfighter, and of course that it is hostile as you are being pursued by the Empire at this point in time.
And now you guys will also notice as the sequence progresses, we have also triggered half of our wanted level with the Empire. You can see that on the top left. And then we will also see one of the ways to clear the wanted status by, quote, disrupting Imperial comms. And one of the big questions that we had from the sequences is this going to be one of the only ways to remove the wanted level, or is this perhaps just a way to do it more quickly, such as calling Lester in GTA? Is it a similar mechanic, or is this really just the only way to do it?
Yeah, you know, this is something that I was really curious about when we learned about the wanted level, and earlier I just assumed it was like in GTA where there's like that area of influence and then you have to leave the area to ultimately lose your wanted status. And it looks like we're seeing one of the ways that you can clear your wanted status, and I'm wondering if this is the only way. And of course, I'm also wondering, Nick, if you have a wanted status on land, do you have to leave the planet that you're on and then fly into space to one of these beacons and disrupt comms? Is that always how you have to stop your wanted level? And if so, is that going to be disruptive? Like, imagine just doing something and then accidentally tripping an alarm, and then you have to immediately run to your ship and then fly away from the planet you're on. Like, is that going to be disruptive? I'm guessing they would have thought that through, and there's probably going to be a more local way to clear the wanted level, but just something that I'm thinking about at this stage before we actually get our hands on the game.
Yeah, those are a lot of great questions that I really hope we get the answer to sooner rather than later. And then we also, in this gameplay sequence, get to see our first look at what the landing animation or the landing selection will look like in this game. And you'll see that you will be able to cycle through landing destinations in the menu with your D-pad, and that you will be able to pick from several locations, assuming that planet has several locations to land. Here you can see for Toshara, you will be able to pick between Mirogana City, Janta's Hope, and the Pike Poaching Station. So very cool. And then we also get to see the entire landing animation from selecting your destination and then eventually to getting out of your pilot seat. And this takes approximately 50 seconds.
Yeah, I know a lot of people always like to focus on the landing and takeoff animations, but regardless of the length here, Nick, for me, it's more about the feeling when it comes to these landing and takeoff animations than the actual length being the 50 seconds here. And to me, just the way that it looks, it didn't feel like it was too long, and that might just be the amount of things that it's showing you in the animation. But of course, remains to be seen in actual gameplay how this is going to be and if it's going to be true to size.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is one of those things that you'll get the feel for it once you get your hands on it. And it's not the first time, it's the 10th time you've seen this animation, and do you still feel that way? That's what I'm very intrigued to see. And then here, we actually get to see some of the world, some of Mirogana City, and we see just how alive this world is. We see various advertisements up here in Arabesh. So, you know, they say fuel, hot pot, new hiking trail, ship parts, tailor, a pond store, all kinds of cool stuff. It's just nice to see this world alive and full of very cool small details.
And one new detail here that we're seeing now that we are in the open world is if you look in the bottom right hand corner, you can see if you press right on the D-pad, it looks like that's one way to summon your speeder. And this is something that was not there when you were on the fueling station. So it looks like when you're in a more open environment that would make sense and is compatible with your speeder, such as this location right here, you're able to summon your speeder and traverse the world, which we are hoping is big enough to take advantage of a mechanic such as a speeder.
And then we also get this gameplay sequence as we go through an Imperial checkpoint, and I gotta say, I really love this sequence. I know you don't get stopped, but it just adds to the ambiance of this entire game, how the Empire truly is in control here. And then as you pass the stormtroopers, you'll see some signs here on the right. You'll see an Arabesh travel ad that says the hidden mounds, visit now. But Andreas, we don't only see Arabesh, we also see some Domabesh. We see a Domabesh travel ad, and of course it is in that typical Domabesh gibberish, but very cool to see that return. If you guys have been following us since our Jedi Survivor days, you guys know we love translating and working with Domabesh.
Yeah, and I was also delighted to see in the top right-hand side here, there is Domabesh all across the walls here in Mirogana City, which is interesting to see Domabesh there, because I was assuming that that was text saved for ancient areas like what we saw in Jeddah, but it looks like there may be some history behind Mirogana City here. And as we pass along here, you can also see in the far right hand side of the frame, there's this neon sign that is showing the Pike logo, and I'm assuming that is yet another environmental tip to you that this is a Pike area. And we've heard that Mirogana and Tashara in general, it does have a substantial Pike presence, and so it's no surprise to see that the Pikes are predominant in this area, and they would have their markings around this area. And speaking of neon signs here, you can see up and to the left that there is another Domabesh sign, and it reads DGYOK, which it almost sounds roughly like Djarik, and I don't know if I'm just reading into that, but it is next to a Sabak card sign, and you can see on the inside that there are people gambling, and I've been wondering if we're able to play Djarik in this game, of course, it being such a integral game to the Han Solo experience on the Millennium Falcon, so I just hope that you're able to play Djarik in this game. Maybe I'm just reading into this Domabesh sign here.
And then as the sequence cuts, we also see another Arabesh sign to the right above the door, and it says hotel. So again, just more Arabesh all over the place. It's all over. And then we also see another one as you approach this building, and this one is pretty straightforward. It just says Cantina.
And as you approach the cantina, you have discovered a new location, which is Mikkel's Gambling Parlor. And as you enter the parlor in Arabesh, you can see this sign that says VIP Lounge. And of course, I keep drawing these GTA comparisons here, and it reminds me of the VIP tables in the Diamond Casino. And I'm wondering, Nick, if there's going to be something to the effect of like a high stakes table. But again, I think I'm just reading into this and dreaming of things, but how cool would that be?
That would be very cool. We, of course, are hoping that this is the GTA of Star Wars, but that is yet to be seen until we are able to get our hands on it. And as the sequence ends, we are walking through the cantina, just some great ambiance and environmental stuff. And then we get this final sign that just says Kessel Sabak. So really cool sequence. We got to see some Imperial installation gameplay on that fuel station. We got to see some dogfighting gameplay, and we got to see some open world exploration of Mirogana City. And it is incredibly cool that it all happens in one sequence. And now we're going to move on to the second sequence of gameplay, and this one might be my personal favorite, and that is a sequence that takes place on Kijimi in Kijimi City. If you guys have been following the channel for a while, you know that one thing I have been wanting to do since the LEGO Star Wars days is explore Kijimi, and we were not able to do that in that game, but Outlaws has our back. We will be able to explore Kijimi.
Yes, we will, and we are greeted by the thermal district in Kijimi City. And one thing that I noticed right off the bat, aside from how interesting this environment is, you can see off to the right, they're like roasting some sort of like a space pig, and then there's so many different types of NPCs and wildlife and the snow and the environment, like everything just looks really great. But one thing that I immediately picked up on was that environmental storytelling, being you can overhear different NPCs talking about the power dynamics in this area. You can hear somebody saying, "We shouldn't be here. The Ashiga could come at any moment. You're such a coward. Crimson Dawn is taking over and there's nothing the Ashiga can do about it." I love this sort of environmental storytelling where you don't even have to do anything. You're just walking through this town and you're learning about the history, the power dynamics, exactly what's going on in this area. And it might tip you off to certain things. Just by paying attention to what's around you, you might start to expose yourself to different dangers that may be lurking ahead.
And you see as you approach this location, as you try to enter it, you are actually prevented from entering restricted areas, and perhaps increasing your standing with the Crimson Dawn would have let you enter here through the front door. This does appear to be a Crimson Dawn area, and of course, they don't let you in, so what are you going to do? You are going to have to sneak in when you try to go in around the side. And one thing I really love about this sequence here, Andreas, are the environmental effects. We keep talking about your environment, and you really see one of those effects here. You could see Nyx leaving a trail in the snow. He's kind of burrowing through the snow. You kind of see the same thing here with Kay. You can see her footsteps, and you also can see the snow collecting on both her outfit, on Nyx itself. So you can see the environment being impacted by the character, and the character being impacted by the environment throughout this sequence, and that is really cool.
And as you approach this side entrance here, you do see another Arabesh sign that says restricted area. And of course, that means you are going to enter that area because you are an outlaw after all. So you don't want to follow signs like that.
And then now as we enter a Crimson Dawn area, we will get some sequences of the stealth gameplay. And then we will also see throughout the sequence what happens when you ruin that stealth sequence for yourself and kind of the price that you have to pay. And here you will see that you are able to highlight enemies, and the Nyx selector will tell you that he is a hired gun, Crimson Dawn, he's poor apparently, and that you are in a high security area. And it's really cool that you can see the Crimson Dawn logo. That's a nice little touch.
Yeah, and it really reminds me of the visor scanner from Star Wars Bounty Hunter, where you're able to see if somebody has like a bounty on their head, and then you can collect them. And it just reminds me of that scanner for whatever reason. And it's going to be cool to be able to scan different individuals and see, like, are they poor, are they a high roller, like what exactly are they? And you can see that play out in this sequence. I think it helps the player identify which person ends up holding the key card that you need to get through this sequence. So it does end up actually being helpful here.
Yeah, definitely. And then we see a sequence of Nyx distracting the guard so that you can take him out. Again, just some of the elements at play here and some of the resources at play when you're utilizing the stealth mechanics in this game. We get another instance of the lockpicking. And then we see the main objective of the sequence, where we need to disable the energy barrier in order to steal the relic back from Crimson Dawn.
That's gotta be it. Feelers up, buddy. This could get tricky. Someone nearby?
I don't get paid enough for this.
And here we get a new look at a new stealth mechanic as it pertains to this particular game, and this is one that we've seen in many different Ubisoft titles, including Assassin's Creed, which is the famous whistling mechanic. It's back here, and it looks like it's put to good use as it draws this guard near, and then Kay is able to swiftly and quietly take him out with a sock to the face.
Yeah, very cool, other than, Kay punching him in the face. And then we get to see Nyx also act like a face hugger, and you get to again progress through this sequence, punch another person in the face, and maintain that stealth mechanic as you progress through this here.
And then coming up next, we actually see our first visual glitch in this game, and it is Nyx appearing out of nowhere. There, now you see Nyx, now you don't. And of course, we do anticipate that issues like these will be fixed or should be fixed. And of course, I think this is a good time to point out that this is a work in progress build of the game. Of course, you can see in the upper left there is that watermark that does say that this is clearly a work in progress, and we've seen how much they've been working on this game since the gameplay reveal and how different it is. And I anticipate small things like this will ultimately be fixed by release, but we will of course report on that as we ultimately do get our hands on the build of the game and try it for ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. Like we said, this is a work in progress. They still have multiple months until this game is final. I imagine that glitches like that will be mostly cleaned up, and if not, they will get them cleaned up. And then the next thing we would like to point out is that you will actually be able to use Nyx to steal from the Crimson Dawn Commando, and that does not actually trip the alarm. Nyx can steal very discreetly.
Better mess with us. Nice.
Is it dancing?
A key card. Should get me into that control room.
just blatantly stealing from a commando, you think maybe that would trigger the alarm, but it looks like you're able to do so and get away nice and cleanly here. And Kay ultimately takes that key card back to this room, hacks another terminal, and for successfully hacking that terminal, again, you are rewarded with 50 additional credits, and this time only one option to override primary security, which is ultimately when this player deems it appropriate to bring out the big guns and start just firing away here.
We're going loud. Make them pay! Yeah!
And of course here, then we see in this little sequence, we have completed the main objective of this quest, and that is to steal back the banned Pudira that Crimson Dawn has taken from the Ashiga clan. But the action doesn't stop here, Andres, because now we have to get out of the Wellspring.
Yes, we do, and this is just a continuity of the shit show from before. And here we can see that you are switching to what looks like an electric blaster module on your blaster using that Y button, stun the enemy with this electrifying thing, and then you can run up and then get that one-shot elimination there. And this is a minor nitpicky detail here, but it is the fact that they are calling the thermal detonators in this game a grenade. And for me, I don't know. I think they should be called thermal detonators, not grenades, but I don't know if I'm just being a Star Wars nerd about it. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, we're probably being Star Wars nerds about it, but you know, it would be nice to see them called thermo detonators since it's such an important thing in Star Wars. And then we'll actually see that if you press left on the D-pad, that will open an item selection menu, and then you will be able to pick from electro binoculars, a smoke bomb, holo tracker, and of course that grenade that you just picked up.
And you can see that Kay does throw that grenade towards an enemy, and it explodes right on top of them, and that commando appears to still be kicking. So I wouldn't count on grenades dealing too much damage in this game unless they adjust it.
I'm not quite sure why it did not kill him. It does look like you hit him pretty head on. And then as the sequence continues, again, we will get another look at that Deadeye ability, very reminiscent to Red Dead Redemption. Of course, we have seen it before. And then we cut to the next sequence of gameplay after we have made our escape from Crimson Dawn, and we will see that we are in a brand new location, that being the Thieves' Quarter in Kijimi City. And again, this looks so good with the snow and the wind and everything, the lighting. Kijimi City looks fantastic.
And as you're walking through here, you can see that there is like a white dot above this NPC. So that leads me to believe that you are able to walk up and talk to this NPC. And of course, there's only a white dot above one of the NPCs here. You can see two. So that also leads me to believe that there will be particular opportunities to get information from certain NPCs, maybe trigger certain side quests. And then you can also see in the background, there's a stormtrooper who appears to be guarding this door. And one thing that I'm wondering is, can you get in trouble for going into an area like this? Will there be restricted areas like this with the Empire guarding them? And will there be some sort of a reward for evading the Empire successfully without tripping any alarms or without triggering the Empire in any way and becoming wanted? Like, is there an actual reward in there for you?
Yeah, that is one of the big things I'm wondering for this game, is just how much you are able to interact and impact the Empire as you progress. And then as this shot continues, we appear to get a look at perhaps a brand new species for Star Wars, Andreas, a snow bantha.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing a snow bantha before, but this looks almost exactly like a bantha, just with a snowy skin on it. So who knew? Kijimi has some banthas, so that's pretty cool. And then as we go ahead here, we get yet another new area of Kijimi, and that is Kijimiko Square here. And as Kay goes along ahead, you can see that this particular passageway is referred to as Queen's Road. Of course, I'm assuming because this road leads to the Ashiga Queen's Castle or Citadel or whatever that's called. And as she passes this storefront on the left-hand side, you can see that that door opens. And I'm really curious how many shops and buildings you are able to explore in dense urban areas such as this one. And you can see that this door says Wesla's, and Nick, to me, it looks like it's some sort of like a food vendor. So I'm just wondering what you're able to do in there.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I'm wondering, if you notice the locations, it says Kijimi City under it. I wonder what other locations might be in Kijimi. Will it just be Kijimi City? Will we be limited to just here? Then that's not a problem. It does look like it's rather large. Or will we be able to see other areas of Kijimi that we have not simply seen in Star Wars? Because this is the same location that we saw in Episode 9 and what we saw in Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, and now we're seeing it here in Star Wars Outlaws. Will there be more to Kijimi than just this city?
And ultimately, we enter the clan stronghold here. And one thing that I immediately am curious about as we enter the stronghold, Nick, is you can see all of the turbo lasers and high security presence. What would it be like if you just popped one shot off here? Like, would you be dead in like a millisecond, or how do we think this would play out?
I mean, there are turbo lasers and heavy security. What happens if you go in here guns blazing? You're dead. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's straightforward. There's a reason they have turbo lasers in here. Like, you're going to die. But thankfully, they have let you in because you have brought the artifact to Queen Ashiga. And as this sequence ends, of course, we see the cutscene play out where you offer the artifact to Queen Ashiga as an offer of peace in order to trade and get the person back that you are trying to help. And Queen Ashiga then will try to bring you on as some sort of help hired gun going forward. So here you see you have betrayed Crimson Dawn, but you have earned some of that reputation that we have been talking about with the Ashiga clan. Again, just playing those syndicates against each other and to what Kay needs in the moment. That ends that gameplay sequence, and we will now enter our third and final brand new gameplay sequence. And here we will be exploring the Castellan on Toshara, and we will be exploring a High Republic ship, the ruins of a High Republic ship, that being the Castellan.
Yeah, and immediately here we can start to see some of the traversal mechanics in this game as we're greeted with this jump point where you can use the right stick to rappel down.
Hey, buddy.
Ugh, Waka, this thing is falling apart around me.
Why do you think we stopped scrapping it? Everyone figured it wasn't worth the risk.
Except you.
It's a calculated risk, Kay. And I'm good at math.
And here's yet another use for that grapple hook, and this is more similar to what we've seen in the gameplay reveal in the past, where she used that grapple hook to swing across a ledge, and here you're swinging towards a yellow colored grabby area. Nick, we love yellow colored traversal in video games. Thank God for yellow paint so we know where to go in these games.
Yep, for all my Horizon fans out there, we love yellow colored things that we can climb on. It is probably one of the most used tropes in open world exploration games, and it's really funny to see it make an appearance here in Star Wars Outlaws. And I've got to say, I really do like the look of the grapple and traversal mechanics. Ubisoft, of course, is very good at this, the Assassin's Creed games being amongst the first to implement features like this in gaming, so not surprising to see that there is a really nice, robust feature and gameplay mechanic for that in Outlaws.
And one thing that I really like, just a very small detail, is that it looks like Kay pulls a flashlight out of her bag when she goes into a dark area, and I just love the animation here where she actually reaches over towards her bag and pulls the flashlight out and then pulls it out. I just think that's a really nice touch, and it just looks so realistic. And then as you are traversing throughout this area and I just want to point out the environmental effects here. I love the lighting as the light spills through openings in the ceiling here, and you can see the dust particles and sand particles in the air illuminated. You pick up what is labeled as Old Galactic Credit plus 34. And one thing that I'm noticing about this is that it isn't added to your credits total like we saw before with those terminals. So I'm wondering, are these Old Galactic credits stored in a separate credit pile, or is it used to trade for something else? Like, is it treated as like an item? I'm just wondering how the different currency here plays into the economy of this game.
Yeah, that's a great question, because we know that there are a bunch of different currencies that exist within Star Wars, and it will be interesting to see how many of those make an appearance in this game, and do they really mean things? Like, if you go to certain locations, can you only use a certain currency, or are they used to unlock special items, or is it just like a cosmetic upgrade type thing? Lots of questions still to be answered about the currencies, and then as we continue, we will see this little gameplay mechanic where you're able to use the electric portion of your blaster to then unlock this door. We've seen this in games in the past. Honestly, makes me think of like a Ratchet and Clank mechanic, or we've also seen it in Spider-Man with the electro web. So here we are seeing another use for K's blaster.
And one thing that I really enjoyed about this portion is actually the audio as you jump on to this metal wall here. I love that creaking sound of the metal, and then later on when you jump down onto a ledge, you can really hear like a nice thud, and I can really tell that the sound design team really knocked it out of the park with these sequences, and I just can't wait to hear this game. And it's really an underrated part of most games, sound design, and I think people don't mention it enough. We talk so much about graphics, but audio is so much of that experience as well, and I'm liking what I'm hearing so far.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I want to just talk about as we progress through this sequence is just how impressive this environment is, and the verticality with the traversal system and what's going on in the environment here. You see the ship kind of falling apart as you progress through it. And this sequence honestly really reminds me of that Lucrehulk sequence from Jedi Survivor. It kind of reminds me of the Death Star 2 ruin sequence in LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. Just a lot of similar vibes, and it's really cool to be in this High Republic ship and just exploring some of the old Star Wars stuff and just adding more to the overall lore of this universe. I really love blending this new era of Star Wars with a nice and familiar era, that of course being the original trilogy.
I couldn't agree with you more, Nick. I really do appreciate all of those tie-ins, and another thing that I'm really appreciating about this sequence, and I know I said it before, but I think it bears saying again, is the lighting here. As you do open the reactor here, you can see that smoke is like billowing out, and the way that the light is illuminating that smoke as you're climbing throughout this traversal sequence, it really does jazz up what would be an otherwise boring traversal sequence, because I know we can all get bogged down by repetitive traversal in games, and I love the variety in the traversal. You're not just climbing up the same thing over and over again. This reactor looks great, and the lighting changes here. You can see there's like a floodlight that is flashing against Kay and Nick's to the right hand side, and their shadows are being portrayed to the right, and the way that the darkness and light plays with one another. I'm just very impressed by the lighting here, and I just really cannot wait to see how this looks in game. I know these early game demos are often overly polished, and I just hope that it looks like this in the final build.
We get to see more of that swinging mechanic, very reminiscent of an Uncharted 4 or, a Spider-Man or something like that. Just seeing more of that grapple hook gameplay. And then we finally make our way to the bridge, and we are looking for the nav computer. And unfortunately, as the sequence progresses, we are going to get caught, and we are going to have an encounter with Zarek Besh, of course, the main bad guys of this game.
And as we are encountering the Zarek Besh, you can see in this particular segment that Kay shoots these canisters, these gray canisters, and as she shoots them, it emits this smoke everywhere. And one thing that I noticed is you're able to hide in this smoke. It's almost like tall grass in Assassin's Creed, because you can see she walks right up to this Zarek Besh guy, and he has no idea that she's there. So again, it's an example of stealth mechanics in the middle of an action sequence.
We see this a lot, especially with Ubisoft games, when it comes to like the Assassin's Creed tall grass, where somehow they just don't see you standing in the tall grass even though you are clearly sticking out. So it's just kind of funny to see that with the smoke. And then we will also see here in this encounter with the Zarek Besh it looks like this agent appears to be healing himself behind cover, so that might be something you need to keep your eye on when you're trying to take these enemies down, is they might be healing themselves, so you might want to make sure you're not giving them the opportunity to do that and prolonging these battles that you will have with your enemies.
And one other thing about this Zarek Besh agent is it looks like they're pretty dangerous, because I think I counted about 4 or 5 shots were landed onto K from this Zarek Besh agent, and look how much health was depleted at the health bar down below. I mean, that almost killed her, and it was a very short gunplay interaction, only 4 or 5 shots taken, and then you're almost dead. So what that signals to me is there will likely be an emphasis on maintaining your anonymity in encounters like this, particularly with Zarek Besh, where it looks like there's going to be consequences for getting shot here.
Yeah, and it definitely makes me wonder what's going to happen as you reach those higher wanted levels with the Empire, and then you face things like Death Troopers or ATSCs. Like, are they going to just be able to one-shot you? Like, are they going to make you pay for getting your wanted level that high? Just a lot of questions I have. And then we get to one of my favorite sequences that we see from all of this gameplay, and that is the cinematic set piece of Kay running through the ship, the ruins of the ship. She's blasting people, she has stuff falling around her, explosions going off. I love these cinematic shots. It's one of the things that I really love about the Sony first-party exclusives, is just how cinematic they are, and I love that we're blending this with that open world gameplay. Just two things that I absolutely love, and I really feel like when games do a good job of having a fun, explorable open world and cinematic set pieces like that, that's when magical things can happen. And of course, I'm not saying that's going to happen when it comes to Star Wars Outlaws, but it is nice to see little teases of that here and there throughout these sequences.
And this sequence ultimately ends with this cutscene. And Nick, one thing that I do want to point out from this cutscene is, oh my god, how big is that thermal detonator? Like, is it just me, or is that thing like unusually big for a thermal detonator? It looks like the size of a softball.
Yeah, I'm honestly starting to wonder if perhaps there is an actual explosive in Star Wars that we just don't know about that is referred to as a grenade that happens to be the size of a grapefruit, because like you said, I don't remember thermal detonators being that big.
Yeah, either that or maybe they are just thermal detonators, and Ubisoft is just, you know, playing loosey-goosey with the definition of thermal detonator in this game. But
hey, maybe ND5 has small hands.
Maybe ND5 is just a lot smaller than we thought he was. But anyway, Kay ultimately runs on her speeder here, and one tiny detail that I noticed all the way at the end here is you can see that the next objective is 4.4 kilometers away. That is Mirogana, and you're going through the Mirogana Valley here. Nick, that seems like this map is going to be pretty big, and I think we expected Tashara to be that large planet in this game, and it looks like it's cracked up to be here.
Yeah, my biggest question with that is it being 4.4 kilometers. That's a lot of kilometers. Like, that's very big. Will it be true to scale kilometers, or will there be some manipulation there where you're not actually traversing like in-game kilometers? It's much shorter, but they just use kilometers as like the metric to gauge how far away you are. That's one of my big questions with it, because we've seen games stay true to the definition of like a kilometer or a mile within their gameplay, and we've also seen a lot of manipulation. Think of like, what is it, the Crew or Drive Club, where you can traverse the entire US, but you can do it in the span of like what would be really like a mile, honestly. So I'm just interested to see if the scale really is true to size when we get our hands on this game.
And with that is all of the gameplay that we have. Of course, we also have a bit of environmental stuff here and there, but those were the key gameplay segments that we received for this game. And again, a big thanks to Ubisoft for allowing us the early access for this gameplay. We really do appreciate this as a real gift from them, so thank you to the folks over at Ubisoft. And of course, these were so many details that we were able to pull from this gameplay, and I'm sure we will be pulling more and more details from this gameplay as we approach release. And that said, if there's anything that you notice in this gameplay, please let us know in the comments down below. We'd love for the comments just to be a forum for us to all discuss this game. And what do you all think after looking at this extended gameplay sequence? Are you still as convinced as you were when you saw the gameplay reveal? Are you more convinced? Are you less convinced? Where are you at in terms of your opinions on Star Wars Outlaws. For me personally, I'm honestly super excited for this game. I was really hoping that Star Wars Outlaws would be an open world that I'm looking forward to explore above all else, and it looks like it is delivering on that promise, and I just can't wait to explore this world. That is really what I was looking for out of an extended gameplay showcase. And right now I'm just left with that feeling of I want to explore this world. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, definitely. This is probably going to get me in trouble, but I'm excited for this game. Everything I've seen up to this point is exactly what I wanted from this game, and I just cannot wait for August 30th to get my hands on it. Like, it's a brand new Star Wars game. It's an open world. Yes, I know, I get it. All of that stuff that people keep yelling at us in our comments about, but I'm sorry. I'm excited for this game. Guys, like he said, let us know your thoughts down below in the comments. We love reading them, but that is going to do it for us for this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, we will see you all next time.